Hello and welcome to another episode of A Coffee with Chris. As always, brought to you in association with our charity partner 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀, who help local people affected by cancer, and proudly sponsored by Hill Coaching Company, here to help you become a better version of yourself today. Now, it's time to welcome today's guest. I've drafted in James Brown, founder of JSB Digital, helping businesses get more online sales using paid social media and pay-per-click advertising. James, welcome aboard to A Coffee with Chris. And let me kick off with this question. For the businesses out there that are dabbling and not making the desired progress they'd like in the world of paid social, what steps would you recommend they take this seriously once and for all?
Cool. Well, thanks for having me, Chris. Yeah, I'd say the first things you really need to get locked in is the tracking. So make sure that your conversion tracking is set up correctly, and verify that it's working. So if you're not seeing the results you want, make sure that it is actually tracking accurately and you're not sort of under-reporting or in fact over-reporting, which is actually slightly worse. And then also just go through the stages of the campaign and look at the data. Is it the click-through rate? Are people not clicking through enough? Okay, well then that suggests that maybe it's the creative or the copy that needs tweaking. If you're getting lots of clicks through and people are coming through to the website and they're not converting there, maybe you need to realign your message from the ads with your website and sort of just sort of try and have a look and see if you can sort of understand where people are falling off and not converting. And then, if you sort of look at that, you can make incremental improvements, which will have a good impact on the bottom line.
Such good advice to kick off with, James. I just see so many business owners that are just aimlessly throwing money at paid social and hoping something works, and they don't get into the nitty-gritty piece, which is interesting. Do you think that's because they maybe have the perception that using a paid social specialist like yourself, James, is perhaps too expensive, or is it too complicated? Or I'm really interested to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that say that they do paid social, but they perhaps don't back it up, or they outsource to other people who aren't delivering. So I think if you're looking for a paid social specialist, someone who can prove results is vital. And I mean, if you're looking for an agency, then you're probably going to pay a little bit more, but there's loads of good freelancers around as well. So I think it depends sort of where you're at as a business as to what you sort of need to look for.
Yeah, really stellar advice, that, James. I've really, as you know, because we do work together with a few joint clients, don't we? I really value the power of paid social, and I'm a huge advocate of the world doesn't start and end with organic social. The world doesn't start and end with design. The world doesn't start and end with video. I think all of those segments can come together to make the magic happen, right? And we're now in this world with the majority of these social platforms where they are pay to play if you want to make that sort of sustained, fast progress that a lot of business owners desire. What's your take on that, James? Because I know for a fact that you pick up a lot of just sort of standard organic stuff and then elevating it to a new audience. What's your take in the transition of these organic social platforms into sort of this pay to play world that we're in today?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it is very much, if you want that quick growth, then paid ads is a great way of accelerating that growth. And if you've got the budget, you can get thousands of eyes on your website within a matter of days. But at the same time, and I'm sure you'll testify to this, that organic still very much has its place. And on the clients we work on together, we see some great results where we are taking organic posts and boosting them to a paid audience, and it works really effectively. So I think ultimately the sweet spot is in between, is doing both.
Yeah, no, I agree, James. And I think there is, again, this perception that it's almost like a luxury, but I think it's become an essential. I think it's so important, and especially if you want to get in front of the right people. And it's that targeting piece that you've spoken to me about, timelessly over time. And what are the best steps to take there, James, with regards to targeting? Because say, for example, a business is a restaurant on the Norfolk coast and they want to get in front of more people. Like, what are the sort of first steps to get them into that world of targeting the right people, per se?
Yeah, so I think in in that instance, especially more recently, broad audiences have worked really well, and that's something that I 5 years ago would have laughed at myself for saying. But the ad platforms are so sophisticated now that broad works really well. So I think it's looking at demographics for the restaurant on the Norfolk coast. So it's looking at the age of people and location, and I think that's sort of key there. And I also think I see a lot of people underutilizing like remarketing audiences. People have engaged on Instagram, Facebook, as well as website retargeting. That tends to works really well as well.
Interesting. What are the platforms at the moment, James, that are tickling your fancy? Because of course there's been the very sharp emergence of TikTok, and of course LinkedIn is such an incredible platform as well for paid social. But what's the platform of preference for you with regards to paid social, or does it depend on a case by case?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think you've got to look at the business and see where their audience are hanging out online, and that's sort of what determines the platforms that are best for that business.
So there's no personal preference though. Like there's not one platform that you particularly enjoy more than the other, or?
So I've been running ads on Meta since 2016. So I think just for the sort of the history there. Although the bugs do sort of
This is why people should work with you, James. I'd rather you than me. Meta seems to give me this constant headache. And I'll tell you the reason why I brought that up, James. Is the truth is, I'm extremely concerned that business owners, that marketing managers are falling for the vanity trap. And so my question to you is, how do you run ads on social media that create leads and sales and not just create views and vanity metrics? How do you go about that?
So obviously you need good creative and good copy. That is a standard whatever you're doing.
Quick pause, Jake. Quick pause. I'm so sorry, mate. What do you mean good creative? What does that mean?
So ultimately you have to test it and see what your audience reacts to. But I would say some videos, some static images, carousel ads, have a good array of different types of content there, because some people on Instagram, for example, are watching a lot of reels, whereas other people are more on the feed and looking at static. And so I think you have to have that mixture in there. And then you want that direct response ad copy that is with a strong call to action, that's telling people what action you want them to take. And then I think as well, it's really important to get the campaign objective correct. If you're going for a reach or a traffic objective, you may reach a lot of people, or you may get a lot of clicks to your website, but those conversion focused objectives, so whether it's leads or sales, sort of have a really sort of strong impact on the performance of the campaigns. And I think a lot of people don't quite really sort of understand how much so, but Facebook in particular has so many data points on people that they know if someone's in market looking to buy a product, whereas if they're sort of more in the research phase. So I think sort of having that sales objective kind of really helps to sort of get those leads and sales over the line.
Good. That means I'm not going insane, because I have been tearing my hair out over this, thinking to myself, like, why are people continuously doing this? And I even see ads myself, James, paid ads come up on my various social platforms, and I look and I go, right, and they're not telling me to do something. They're not telling me to go anywhere, or even in some cases, they're not even telling me what they do or who they are. It's just like a logo, and I'm like, why are you wasting your money? That must does that not frustrate you as well?
Yes, it does. And I think that's one of the benefits of working with an external specialist, is that they don't know your business as well as you do. So they will see that and be like, okay, well, we need to have that call to action in there. Whereas I think if you're the business owner doing it, you sometimes fall into the trap of, because you know the business so well, you assume everybody else knows what you do. Whereas when you bring in a fresh set of eyes, they can sort of take it back to basics and use the user's knowledge across different clients to sort of hit the ground running with good ads from the start.
Bang on, James. I didn't expect to go down the CTA, the call to action avenue in this conversation, but I think it's so important. Like, please, I know that there's many people, watching this back and listening to this back. If there's one thing you take away from this conversation, tell someone to do something. Like that's
Yeah,
so important.
and
Whether
yes,
it's organic or
not
paid, right?
yeah, absolutely, or even email or anything really. I don't think yeah, just yeah, you have to direct people to what you want them to do for sure.
I think we've just gone the other way, haven't we? Like everyone's almost like we've become too, quintessentially British, and we're sort of dancing around the outside. No. Every now and then you
Yeah.
need to give them a right hook. James, I want to delve into LinkedIn because it's my
Yes.
favorite platform. So I'm being
Okay.
selfish, but I think business owners will find this a benefit too. It's becoming almost quite well known that LinkedIn is the more expensive, whatever that means,
Yeah.
platform to run paid social ads on. Why is that?
So yeah, so essentially taking it down to basics, the cost to distribute, which is the CPM, which is the metric that sort of levels at how much it costs to reach people, is more on LinkedIn. But I think LinkedIn have positions themselves really well there. I was doing a little bit of research, and the average order value of B2B business is 7 times higher than B2C. So I think, yes, you're paying more to reach people on LinkedIn, but then the returns you're getting back are higher. And I think LinkedIn have very cleverly sort of realized that, and they're the only social platform where you can really have a rigorous and extensive B2B targeting. There is options for that on Meta, for example, but how many people keep their job up to date on social media? Not too many. Obviously, you've got PPC, which is search and intent, but if you're looking to find those B2B leads, then LinkedIn really is sort of the place to go for that.
What a funny place we've ended up in, James, because it's almost like people look at LinkedIn paid ads and like, oh, well, that's way too expensive, but yet it works more. But they'd rather spend less on Meta and it perform on the whole a lot less than LinkedIn if they're in B2B, which is a really interesting sort of scale, isn't it?
Yeah, I think people look at the perceived value. Oh, we can reach people for £5-10 on Meta, whereas LinkedIn, it may be sort of 20, 30, £40 to reach 1,000 people, but you're reaching that your core target audience, then it's definitely worth it.
How, James, I know that you work with a whole array of clients, small, medium, and large, and I'm fascinated to learn from you. Do you often recommend having a balance in place? Because I know we've used that word there, reach, whatever that means, and so many people still don't really quite understand that, reach, impressions, etc. And how do you balance that with, at the same time, actually getting people further down the funnel to make that purchase? Like, is there a blueprint? Is there a certain methodology to this that you recommend your clients go through?
So I think with CPM, which is kind of what measures the reach, there are things you can do to bring that down, but actually if you can increase your click-through rate or your conversion rate, that's more achievable to do, and I think that will actually have a bigger impact on the bottom line. If you can go from 1% to 2% click-through rate, you're going to get twice as many people through to your website. And then same again with conversion rate. I mean, you can make tweaks to targeting to bring down the CPM, but ultimately that's an auction with thousands of other advertisers all in there, and we have very little control over what we can do there. There's industry tricks or sort of little things you can do to try and improve it, but it's not going to make a massive difference. I don't really think.
No, interesting take. I was wondering about that. And the other thing I'm wondering, James, is what's your take on boosting? Because so many people, they log on to Facebook, obviously Meta, they're scrolling, they see one of their posts and it says boost for £15 to reach X number of people, right? How much money is wasted through lazy boosting?
I dread to think. I would like to think that some people, it's not lazy. Some people don't quite realize that potentially, but the act of boosting the post is, there's nothing wrong with that, and it's actually good because you're almost reusing your organic efforts again. So then that's great. I definitely recommend doing that from within your ad account. And within your campaigns, when you're setting up the ad, there's a little box that says create ad or use existing post. And then you can boost the post from within there, and then you can have it into your campaign objective. You can select the audience much easier, and then you can also report on it alongside your other ads as well.
Right. So James, just let me come in here then. So correct me if I'm wrong. So what you're saying is you should boost it that don't think boosting is bad, but do it through Ads Manager, not just on the timeline per se. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely spot on.
Fine, that makes complete sense to me. And how do people get the most out of Facebook then? Because it's one of those platforms where there's so much nonsense spoken about Facebook. It's still the biggest social media platform in the world. So I'm interested to get your take on that as well.
Yeah, so I think Facebook, within that, you get Instagram as well. So I definitely wouldn't say picking between either of them. I would leave both of them alone. And I've had clients where say, "Hey, my audience isn't going to be on Facebook," and I'm like, okay, but if you remove Facebook, you've limited that pool of people so much, so then you are then probably going to increase your cost to distribute, which is then going to have a knock-on effect. So I think fundamentally Facebook and Instagram, they're kind of intertwined in terms of ads. I don't think you need to obviously have tracking and then a solid campaign structure,
right?
And then a broad audience, as I said earlier. I mean, it goes against all my fundamentals from a few years ago, but it works so well. I still think interests are worth a test as well. And then I think it's just a case of setting things up in a sound way and allowing them time to work.
Okay,
I think it's quite easy to sort of set something live and want instant results. There's a process to a learning phase and things that it takes time for it to sort of develop and understand.
Just give us a little bit of a slight, I know we've only got a short amount of time in this conversation, but just give us a little bit of a deeper dive into that area. When you say, like, you know, setting things up and, you know, getting things right and, you know, campaign planning, like what does that look like? What do you mean?
So you have your shells, you have a campaign, and then within the campaign you have ad sets. So this is where you set your audience, demographic, targeting, placements. So I recommend having between 1 and 5 of those broad, a few different interests, and then within each ad set, 1 to 5 ads, optimizing amongst sort of let the algorithm to sort of distribute them and allow them to sort of allow the audience to react, and sort of the algorithm will drive the spend into the better performing ads. So I think sort of giving the algorithm enough to play with. I see a lot of people who have one campaign, one ad set, one ad, and then they're like, it's not working. It's like, well, you need to have a carousel, a static, a video, and yes. So then say different people within the audience will react in different ways to different types of content.
Brilliant. Thank you for explaining that.
That makes sense.
No, it does. And I'm learning a lot today. So thank you. TikTok. Let me throw TikTok at you.
Sure.
What are your observations with the world of paid social on TikTok? What's working? What's not?
I feel like the platform itself is really quite tough for ads. I feel like when you do need, if your content feels too much like an ad, people are just going to skip it so quickly. So that first second is key. See, it's very video led. So I think, it's got maybe slightly higher barriers to entry, I think, for smaller businesses. But if you've got that content creation already in place, then you can definitely see a lot of success. And I think a lot of like when Facebook ads was relatively new in the sort of mid 2010s, the businesses that were advertising there were seeing insane results because it was in that early phase. And I think maybe TikTok is beginning to mature now, but we're still in that boom phase. So I think definitely a good platform if your audience is on there.
Yeah, if you suss it out. And then I think the critical piece of gold there, James, which I'll pull out, is people must invest in good video content that is actually also, and I'll add on to that, bespoke for TikTok too, because to a certain degree, I feel like you can get away with using very similar video on Instagram to Facebook to LinkedIn to a degree. But the way that TikTok's working, it's like it needs to be treated as its own entity, right? And I think that's maybe, as you say, why it's there's a bit more of a barrier to entry with TikTok. So really good advice there, James. I normally do this at the start, James, but tell me some of the wins in your world. Tell me about some of the success stories. I normally ask our guests at the start, why should people care about this? Because I think I'm very worried that people think that paid social is a waste of money, effectively. And so, what are some of the success stories that you've had over your years with JSB Digital?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a few. The main one that picks out to me was on a shared client of ours. Actually, I was targeting the Facebook and Instagram engaged audience I mentioned earlier, and we had a mega order come through, and I think it was absolutely skewed the data for the month. We had like a £12,000 order come through from that audience, so the average order value shot up massively there. So that was massive success. Just for one order of that size was really good.
So it's not just the low ticket stuff. You can use paid social to win huge business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think obviously it completely depends on the business, but there's so much success to be had. And I think one of the best things about it is there's always data there to back it up. It's not like you're doing a TV campaign or a billboard and you're not going to know. So I think if people are unsure on it, then ultimately if you get a good professional who's trusted to give it a go, then you can at least try it and see. And it's possibly not going to work for every business, and there's also so many different variables that come into it. Yes, you can get traffic to your website, but if your website doesn't convert well, then you're not going to get the leads or the sales out the back of it. But I think ultimately you can test it and you can fundamentally say yes or no, this works, which I think is a big positive.
This is why we work so well together, James, because you're saying, it's not all about paid social. And, because as you say, if you're driving traffic to a website that doesn't convert, for example, then obviously you need to go and get a website specialist to sort out and vice versa. There's only so much we can do in the organic social space to create engaging content that's top of funnel to try to push people further down. But this is why I always recommend people engage with paid social. And James, what are the traps? What are the holes that people are falling into here? Because I feel like there's probably quite a lot. So maybe just bring it down to your top 3. We'll call it paid social traps that people are falling into. Please divulge.
So first one I think is people make too many changes too often. So I think there's the learning period, it takes 7 days, it can take longer, and I think people want those instant results, and they set the budget and they're seeing. So I think you need to give ads enough time to settle in and sort of embed. And if every time you make a change, you then reset that learning period. So if you're constantly making changes, it's never gonna learn and sort of move forward. And then secondly is when I see an ad that's not optimized for the placement correctly, so someone's got a square image for feed and then it's showing on story, and it's just so I think you have to sort of optimize for feed and then stories and then reels as well, because the placements differ slightly between them, which is a bit it can be a bit frustrating. And then third is I see a lot of people not using UTM tracking on ads that go into the website, and if you just you add them in at your ad level, you can then look in Google Analytics or the back end of the website and see how people are actually engaged on the website as well, because there may be some ads that's got a really low engagement rate, or and you can say, okay, maybe the message on this ad isn't quite working. So that gives you an extra level of data, which is so vital.
Brilliant, James. Just give us a very brief crash course into the world of UTMs, because I've been banging on about this with prospects and clients for so long now. And I know there are business owners watching this back and they're like, I don't track anything either. Like the first thing I say when I'm on board a client is, how are you going to quantify this is working? And often they don't actually track how many people are going through Facebook, through LinkedIn, through TikTok, etc. So when you say UTM, just give us a bit more information on that, please, James.
Sure. So it's just a parameter that you add to the end of your URL. And there's free tools. If you put into Google UTM generator, you can go through, and then you have source, which essentially is where the traffic's come from. Medium, a lot of people tend to use that for like paid versus organic. You have campaign, which you can then sort of say what campaign is from, and then there's term, which I typically use for like the ad creative, so I can then see which ad people have clicked on, and then there's content, which I tend to use for the audience, so I can sort of see how the different audiences are comparing.
Amazing. I think it's so handy that businesses jump in with that methodology, James, and start to think about this and take paid social more seriously than just boosting on the feed. And James, thank you. I know you're a busy boy, so I will let you lead. But just before I let you leave, how can people do business with you? Where do they find you?
So my website is jsbdigital.co.uk. I'm on LinkedIn, James Brown PPC. I will pop up there, and then on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or X, I'm James B Digital.
Amazing, James. Thank you so much for the conversation today, the learning today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It's been really good.
Awesome. And thank you so much to everyone that's watching and listening to this back. If you've got any questions on the world of paid social or pay-per-click advertising, please do leave a comment down below, whichever platform you're tuning in on. And I'm sure James would be so kind to answer any questions or queries you've got. And as always, a huge thank you to our charity partner, Big C, who help local people affected by cancer, and our sponsor, Hill Coaching Company, who are here to help you become a better version of yourself today. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of A Coffee with Chris, and I'll see you this time.